Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and I think it's time to do a PvE Subtlety Rogue video that'll cover some of the general stuff you'll need when it comes to anything PvE related. That means this is going to be a broad video about Subtlety performance and how to gear for in raids, as well as how to do well in Mythic Pluses. We'll cover everything from the stats to the different legendaries you might want to look out for when it comes to farming and crafting them, as well as what type of setup do you want to go for when it comes to dungeons as well as in raids, the general rotation, and some of the things that you should use as consumables. So let's dive into the video and begin with some of the more fun parts and get into the nitty-gritty as the video goes on. Before we really dive into the video, I first want to let you guys know that on Discord, which you can find down below if you join my Discord, there is a whole page for useful links to help you sim your character, to find out what are some of the other talents everybody's playing, and all the useful information that I used in order to make this video. You can find those links over in the Discord as well. So be sure to join our Discord, again, link down below, to get all the useful information that we'll have in this video. So let's take a look at Subtlety Rogues and gearing. How would you go about gearing your sub-rogue? What are the best stats and what are the best secondary stats you might want to look out for? This early into the expansion, agility is looking like the best stat. So generally agility is going to be the biggest increase for our damage and performance for most of you. I think at a later time, maybe secondary stats will start to shine a little bit brighter, but right now just about anything that gives you extra agility is usually a massive upgrade. As for secondary stats, however, you will want versatility and critical strike. Crit because you're able to get find weakness as a passive, and when abilities crit, whether it's backstab from behind or whether it's shuriken storm, enemies get find weakness. And find weakness as you bypass a portion of enemy's armor, giving you a very consistent and good damage output. So that's why crit is going to be important, but versatility as well. Not only Eviscerates are going to be doing most damage for us, but also Shuriken Storms and Shadow Strikes, which are abilities that are not finishers. So versatility covers our finishers as well as non-finisher damage, so Verse Crit is going to be our best two secondary stats when it comes to gearing our rogue. Particularly for subtlety, double dagger is the way to go. I have seen some players use a heavier weapon in the offhand, and technically you can. I recommend simming. Whatever weapons you have in your offhand, I would sim, because the game right now even recommending me to run a dagger that's much lower item level than my best one-hander, my sword, at 220 item level. The game is telling me to drop to a much lower item level dagger because daggers are just that much more important for subtlety in this expansion. So if you're trying to gear and try to figure out what weapons you should run, you should probably go for double dagger in each hand. Next, let's talk about some of the talents you might want to run. So what are the talents you'll want to use in single target as well as Mythic Plus situations? In level 15 role, we have options of Weapon Master and Premeditation. Weapon Master is going to be the best choice for single target right now, but of course you can sim, as there will be probably other builds. And if any other builds like a Gloomblade Backstab build comes around, I will definitely let you guys know about it in a separate video. But Weapon Master allows Shadow Strikes and Backstabs to have a low chance to hit the enemy again, which allows you to deal extra damage but also generate extra common points. In level 25 though, Shadow Focus right now seems to be the strongest, but of course sim your character, maybe Night Circle will work out better for you. At level 30, Deeper Stratagem seems to be the go-to, because we just generate a lot of common points, and being able to maximize the damage of our finishers with the mastery that we have just makes the most sense. Level 35, we have Cheat Death, which is a great safety net for all PvE situations, so you can basically die without having to really die in the game. Level 40, I usually run something like Prey in the Weak, Night Terrors, or Shot in the Dark, depending on the situation. Prey in the Weak can be good in dungeons in order to lock an enemy down. Night Terrors can be pretty good if you need any kind of AoE slow, although it's not a reliable or great AoE slow, but an AoE slow nonetheless. And Shot in the Dark can be used also to CC enemies without having to spend or waste energy for the combo points. Level 45, it's usually going to be Envelop in Shadows. That seems to be the strongest choice in the row so far. Of course, maybe with future sims we might have other options, but right now getting more Shadow Dances and faster cooldown on Shadow Dances and an extra charge of dance gives us a lot of consistency for this spec. At level 50, Master of Shadows is generally the play. It gives you a lot of energy every time you activate Shadow Dance or if you re-stealth with Vanish. So it gives you a lot of consistency, especially for the single target fights. Secret Technique ends up being pretty good for AoE. So this is going to be our talent row: Weapon Master, Shadow Focus, Deeper Strat, Cheat Death, Prey in the Weak, Envelop in Shadows, and Master of Shadows for most single target situations. However, if you're someone who is going to be doing some dungeons, these are the changes that I would go for. pre-med, so we don't have to worry about slice and dice uptime when it comes to dungeon situations, since you'll have a lot more opportunity for restarts, and secret technique for any kind of cleave or AoE capabilities. And that's going to be kind of the play for our rogue and how we'll end up playing our character, depending on the two types of PvE situations. But of course, you can always plug your talents into Sims to see what gives you the best results. When it comes to your rotation as Subtlety Rogue, there are a couple things you will want to do. First of all, you want to maintain slice of dice at all times, and on single target situations, when you're not bursting with Shadowlands, you'll want to maintain Rupture on the enemy. You'll want to always use Shadow Blades in the opener, which will give you extra damage, but also extra combo points to get all your setups for slice, as well as Rupture on the enemy. And then you want to maximize the values of your dance. You generally want to combine your dance windows together with Symbols of Death for the most amount of damage. Get as many Shadow Strikes as you can, and without capping or overcapping on combo points, you want to throw out as many Eviscerates during that time as possible. Rupture only when you need to refresh the Rupture, but do not Rupture while you are in mid of a dance. It is much better to just throw out as many Eviscerates during dance, even if the target does not currently have Rupture on them. And that's really what the spec comes down to. There's a bit of a flow to it when it comes to trying to maximize your dance windows as well as your Symbols of Death windows. So you're trying to kind of combine both of those abilities together, so every 30 seconds you should have a pretty decent go. Sometimes Subtlety will have to pull energy for PvE in order to maximize your damage, so watch out for your energy to make sure during dance you're getting the full value of your abilities. But at all times, keep building combo points, keep spending your combo points into things, because you want to spend combo points to get your dances back a little bit faster. So that's going to be mostly the single target rotation for Subtlety. It's really all about those big 30-second windows, and you want to try to line up as many bursting abilities during those 30-second windows as often as possible. And that's going to be the basic rotation for us in single target. When it comes to a cleave or a 3-target situation, Subtlety will do something interesting here. We will start applying Rupture to multiple enemies. For every single enemy up to a maximum of 3, you will put up a Rupture on them. You'll want to maintain slice and dice at all times and apply Rupture on 3 enemies before you go for your burst. Right now, when it comes to Sims, the game is telling me to use Shadow Strikes and Eviscerates, even though you do have other options of generating combo points and finishers. But on 3 targets or less, you will always be Shadow Striking and always be Eviscerating, and I would probably do that on the highest health target or a priority target that needs to go down. Otherwise, maintain Ruptures on everybody. And when you're not in Shadow Dance, you'll want to be using Shuriken Storm in order to generate combo points with AoE, making sure that everybody has damage over time. If you are running the talent of Secret Technique in the situation, you'll start using Secret Technique on cooldown, because this ability is pretty good for cleaves. When it comes to pure AoE situations, 5 targets or higher, Subtlety will shift gears and we'll start using our new finisher. Instead of using Eviscerate, you'll be using the new finisher called Black Powder, which has a very similar effect as Eviscerate. Both Black Powder and Eviscerate do extra shadow damage on targets with fine weakness, so Black Powder is going to be just a more efficient use in order to deal spread damage to everybody in the area. You'll also shift gears and you will not be Shadow Striking anymore during Shadow Dance. You'll be using Shuriken Storm during your dances. It'll make your Shuriken Storm hit a little bit harder during your dance windows, but also Shuriken Storm will generate more combo points since there's a lot more enemies. So basically, your playstyle is going to be press 1 button to generate all full combo points, press 1 button to spend all those combo points, over and over and over until the groups of enemies are either shortened to 3 targets or are all dead. If you are in a big trash bag that needs to be nuked down very quickly, adding Shadow Blades to this playstyle and any other cooldowns, any other trinkets or potions, consumables also can be useful, as Subtlety's AoE can actually be quite high. It does cap out at 8 targets, however, so if you are in an 8 target situation quite often, you will want to try to do as much burst damage as possible, especially in the opener, as Subtlety will have quite a lot of value for it. Then we have a lot of Subtlety Rogue Legendaries, and which Legendaries should you craft first if you're planning on playing some Subtlety Rogue? First of all, Akari's Soul Fragment seems to be a really strong Legendary for single target. After using Shadow Strike or Cheap Shot, the target suffers a Shadow Strike from the shadows 2 seconds later at 25% effectiveness. This extra Shadow Strike does not generate combo points like you used to back on the beta, but it still is a very strong option for pure single target. If you're someone who's trying to play Subtlety in raids for only boss damage and want to maximize only single target damage, then this will be the Lego to craft. However, because it's very limited in terms of pure single target playstyle, a lot of other people have opted to go for Finality, which deals with AoE as well as single target relatively well, and it's a good middle ground legendary. Eviscerate, Rupture, and Black Powder increase the damage of your next use of that finisher move by 25%. That means when you press Rupture, your next Rupture will do more damage. Black Powder will ignite the next Black Powder, and Eviscerate will buff up the next Eviscerate. So this is good legendary for both single target as well as AoE, because you use 3 abilities in all those 3 situations: Eviscerate, Rupture, and Black Powder. So this gives the rogue a very wide toolkit to play with. Another legendary that's really good that a lot of you probably have crafted if you PvP or want to play all 3 specs of rogue is Mark of the Master Assassin. It is a very strong legendary that works for all 3 specs fairly equally. Mark of the Master Assassin gives you while in stealth, and for 4 seconds after breaking stealth, 100% critical strike chance. So this gives Subtlety a massive utility to get a lot of damage out, but also find weakness on enemies very easily. And in dungeons in particular, it's really strong because of the constant resets the Subtlety gets from trash pack to trash pack. So opening up with 100% crit will allow you some really nice setups in the opener on many enemies. My recommendation for legendaries, if you are someone who wants to play primarily sub and not interested about the other specs at all, I would first craft a Finality Lego, and I would continue upgrading this legendary, which this legendary is dropped from the final boss, Denathrius. You can kill Denathrius on normal, heroic, mythic, or LFR whenever that wing is open. Once you get the legendary, which is a 100% drop rate, you can start upgrading it from the Rune Crafter. If you are someone who wants to primarily go full single target, Akari's Soul could be an interesting legendary, but there's a good chance that if you're someone who is going to be raiding, you probably have crafted both Finality and Akari, so you can have legendaries to swap out for different situations. If you're someone who is still not sure which spec you want to play, and you simply want to try out Subtlety, Mark of the Master Assassin I think is going to be a great legendary for you to start with. It's going to be a good starter for you to check out all the specs, and it works really well with Subtlety's playstyle, particularly Mythic Pluses, but also has value in raids. When it comes to Conduits, there's a couple different options that Subtlety likes. First of all, use single target Conduits. The best single target conduit is going to be Stiletto Staccato. Another conduit that's also pretty good for single target is Perforated Veins. Shadow Strike increases the damage of your next backstab by 26%, giving you a meaty backstab to follow your Shadow Strikes afterwards. You're going to be Shadow Striking quite a bit as Subtlety in pure single target anyway, so this one ends up being pretty good overall. Deeper Daggers is another interesting conduit that can be used in single target, but also can be used in Mythic Pluses. If you're a rogue that wants to do both Mythic Plus as well as raids, Deeper Daggers ends up being probably the better choice that you would use for all types of situations. Planned Execution ends up being a conduit that's really good for AoE. Symbols of Death increases your critical strike chance by 5.6. The crit itself can be useful in single target, but it is one of the more useful ones for AoE. First of all, it sims really well, but second, extra crit when you are going for AoE damage allows you to get more chances or opportunities, or longer uptimes rather, of find weakness on multiple enemies. It's always a good idea to sim what conduits you have, especially as we progress further with our different soulbind trees. So, simming your conduits to find out best ones for single target as well as dungeon situations is going to be preferable, unless Blizzard ends up making quite a variety of different changes to these. As right now, Planned Execution with my one conduit slot seems to be the best choice so far. It can change as I get more slots in the future. Finally, we have Consumables, and they're going to be very similar to that of Outlaw. You are going to have exactly the same food and feasts, with versatility being your best stat, second to agility. So if you can get some food with agility on it, that'll be perfect. However, it can be expensive, so the second best thing for Subtlety is going to be Versa. Of course, you also need to make sure your blades are sharp and lubed up, so Shadow Core, Oil for single target, and even in some AoE situations together with Sharpened Stone is the best combo. Don't forget your flasks, and if you can afford them, runes. And also Desolate Armor Kits, which are a new thing. Extra health can help you survive certain mechanics. Then we have potions, with Phantom Fire for single target and Spectral Agility best used for AoE. You also got a variety of different enchants that you should put in your gear for chest piece, cloaks, and boots. Then you have weapon enchants with Celestial Guidance and Sinful Revelation for single target, Lightless Force for AoE. And your rings should be enchanted with the versatility or critical strike as well as gemmed. Sims should help you out with what stats you should enchant and gem your gear with. So that one will help, but if you're not sure, I think usually a safe choice for Subtlety is to go with versatility. And that's going to be everything we need for Subtlety in order to succeed. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. This was fun to put together because this is a spec that I played a little bit on the beta, but I never truly decided to dive into it. So these are going to be the fruits of my labors research in order to put together this video for all of you. Thank you all so much for watching, and hopefully this guide helps you pull out the massive single target DPS and even some competitive Mythic Plus damage as your Subtlety rogue. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see all of you in the next one.